Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we're going to build our very first serverless web page that uses API Gateway as well as Lambda. So let's have a look at what it's going to look like. We've got our user and our user wants to go to hellocloudgurus2019.com, but they don't know what the IP address is. So that's where Route 53 comes in, and essentially our user sends a query across to Route 53 and it's going to respond with the bucket address for our website. And then basically our user is then going to go over to our S3 bucket and they're going to go to our index.html. And when they view that page, it will just show up as a static page, so it will be returned to their browser, but there'll be a button there. And when they push that button, they're going to get dynamic content. And essentially what's going to happen is they're going to send a request through to API Gateway. API Gateway is then going to proxy that request to a Lambda function. The Lambda function will then take the data and then return a result to API Gateway, which will then return a result to our user. So it's lots of fun. It's going to be very, very hands-on. It is a lab and you will need to log into the AWS console. Okay, so here I am in the AWS console. I'm going to go over to services and we're going to go to Lambda. And if this is the first time you've ever used Lambda, you'll get this splash screen. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create a function. Notice there's three different things you can do here. You can author from scratch, you can use blueprints, or you can use the serverless application repository. This is super cool because it's basically a whole bunch of applications that are available to you that have already been developed and published on AWS. This is super useful, as well as the blueprints for creating Alexa skills. You don't need to know how to program. You can go in and create Alexa skills and then go through and edit them. We'll have a look at how we do that later on in the course. So we want to go and author from scratch. I'm going to call this my first Lambda and then function. In terms of the runtime environment, we've got a load of different runtime environments here. So we've got .NET, we've got Go, we've got Java, we've got Node.js, we've got Python, we've got Ruby, and we can even use custom runtime environments. We want to go ahead and use Python 3.6. And in here, it asks us about a role. So you can choose an existing role or you can create a new role from templates. If you've never used Lambda before, go ahead and create a new role from template. I'm going to call this my Lambda execution and then role. And then essentially you've got a whole bunch of policy templates in here. So what is it you want Lambda to be able to do? And it is a little bit confusing. It has lots of different options, but essentially what you want is the simple microservice permission. So go ahead and click on that. And then we're going to go ahead and click down here and hit create function. So that has now created our very first Lambda function. It can take a little bit of time depending on your internet speed. And there we go. It says, congratulations, your Lambda function, my first Lambda function, has been successfully created. Now in here, we've got our designer and we've got our function code. And then down here, we've got our environment variables and a whole bunch of other different settings. So let's just start with the designer. In here, we've got all the different triggers. So what is going to trigger our Lambda function? Now, of course, it is going to be API Gateway, but it's really important going into your exam that you understand the different Lambda triggers that can come up in the exam. Note that RDS isn't here, for example. So it's actually more understanding what can't trigger Lambda than what can trigger Lambda. Before we go ahead and configure this, let's just scroll down. In here, we've got our code. So this is our IDE, or Integrated Development Environment. And what I want you to do is I just want you to go over to the resources section of the course, download the resources, and then open up hellocloudgurus.py. Okay, so I'm in my hellocloudgurus.py. You will want to copy and paste this into your clipboard. You may just want to change the name. So at the moment it's my name. Go ahead and put your name in there. Okay, I'm back over. I'm just going to go ahead and delete this and I'm going to paste this in. You can go file save here, but also just understand that any changes that you make, you also need to save up here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit save. So I've saved it both in my IDE as well as saving my function. And in here, all this does is basically it's saying, hey, return a 200 response code with this particular header and then this body. And the body is just Ryan Cronenberg. So it's just returning my name. So essentially, if something invokes this code, it's going to respond with my name. That's all this function does. It's super, super, super simple. Down here, we've got environment variables. This is a way of passing putting variable information into your Lambda function so you can define static code. We're going to use this in the next lecture of the course. Down here we've got our tags. In here we've got our execution role, so this is our IAM role. In here we've got a description, so you might just want to call this my first Lambda then function. In here, we can allocate how much memory is delivered to this function. We can also allocate the timeout, so you can have how many seconds before this Lambda function times out. When we go on and do the poly, we're going to actually increase this to about 5 minutes so that it has time to run the function. And in here, we can choose what VPC. We've got our debugging and error handling. We've got concurrency. And then we've got auditing and compliance, so we can start using CloudTrail with it as well. So we have gone in and we've edited our code, and we've gone in and given our function a description. Go ahead and hit save, so your function is saved. Next thing we need to do is configure a trigger. So as soon as we click on here, it's going to get rid of our IDE environment and it's going to configure our triggers. So we're going to create a new API. In terms of the security, just click on AWS IAM. And that's all we need to do. And you don't need to change any other options. Just go ahead and hit add. And that will now add our trigger. And then all you need to do is go ahead and hit save. And now we have our API gateway as a trigger. And essentially what this has done is it's gone in and created a new API endpoint. And we can view this in a couple of ways. First of all, you could just view this endpoint here by clicking here, but you're going to get an error message. It's just saying missing authentication token. So let's go back. So I've just gone back into my other tab. And then what I want to do is I want to click on this link here, my first Lambda function API. And that will open up API Gateway. And you can see in here API Gateway. And I actually really like the UI for this because it explains what's going on. So we've got our client here, and they're sending a request. And this request right now is any, but we're going to change this to a GET request. This is then going to be proxied to our Lambda function, which is here. And then our Lambda function is going to respond, and then it's going to proxy it back to our client. Now, right now, we're allowing any function. We don't want that. So let's just go through and go to actions, and then we're going to delete this method and go ahead and hit delete. That has now deleted it. Next, we want to go to actions, and we want to create a method. What method do we want? Well, we want to create a GET request. Go ahead and hit yes. And then in here, what's the integration type? Well, we want it to work with our Lambda function, and we're going to use Lambda proxy integration. So click in here. In here, you've got your region. If you just start typing in random letters, you'll be able to find your function. If you can't, make sure you know what region your function is in. So here we go, my first Lambda function. And then we're just going to use the default timeout. So once we've done that, just go ahead and hit save. And it says you're about to give API Gateway permission to invoke your Lambda function. Go ahead and hit OK. And that should now go ahead and create it. So now that we've created, what we need to do is deploy our API. So we need to go down here and just go to deploy. In terms of our deployment stage, just go ahead and hit default, and we could call it my prod deployment, something like that. Deployment, and go ahead and hit deploy. And that has now deployed our API. And if we click in here, we've got our stages. If you go and click on get, make sure you click on get here, then click on this invoke URL, and that should open up a new tab. Let's have a look. Oh, there we go. It doesn't even open up a new tab. It opens up in the same window, and it's got my name. So you should be able to see your name. If you're not seeing it, make sure you've clicked on the get. So like I said before, you've got to click on default, go all the way down to get, and then click on this link. So now that you've got that, I want you to copy this link into your clipboard, and I want you to open up your index.html directory file that we downloaded in the resources section. Okay, so I'm in my browser. I'm just going to go open with and then text wrangler. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. So here's our code. Essentially, this code is running a script. And it's doing a GET request, and we need to tell it where to do the GET request. So let's paste in our API Gateway link in here. So there we go. It's this URL.api, and then all the way through to my first Lambda function. And then all this is doing is it's saying, hello, Cloud Gurus, and then it's got a little button called Click Me. When you click this button, it's going to run this function, which is basically going to send a GET request to our API Gateway. So go ahead and hit save. Now we're back in the AWS console. We have got our API gateway working. It's triggering our Lambda function. What we now need to do is go ahead and configure S3. So let's go over to S3. Before you do this, actually, if you want to use your domain name, just go down. I don't know if you registered it or not, but you can go to Route 53 and you'll find your domain in here. If you still got that domain name, so I'm going to use hellocloudgurus2019.com. Just double check that you have deleted your A record. I had an A record in here still pointing to a load balancer that I'd gone on and deleted. So let's go back over to S3 and I'm going to create a new bucket. Just going to type hello cloud gurus 2019.com. Now I went all the way through this lab and I accidentally typed hellocloudgurus2019.com and I got to the end with Route 53 and it didn't work. So if you do see it in the video edits, this should just be hello rather than hell. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create. So that has now created our bucket. Now the first thing that you'll notice about our bucket is that in here it says bucket and objects not public. Now, of course, we don't want this because this is going to host a website. So let's go ahead and click in here. And what we're going to do is we're just going to edit our public access settings. Make sure these are all unchecked. Go ahead and hit save and go ahead and just type confirm. And that will then change our permissions so that objects can now be public. It's critical that you do that. Let's click in here to go into our bucket. We're going to go over to our properties and we're going to configure static website hosting. And then we're just going to use this bucket to host a website and we're going to use our index.html, HTML, and then error.html. And we're going to go ahead and hit save. And so that has now turned on static website hosting. Let's go back over to our bucket and I'll just click in here. Click the wrong button. And then we're just going to upload our files. So I'm going to go ahead and add my files. I'm going to add my error and my index.html. I'm going to go ahead and hit upload. And those two objects have now been written to S3. And if I click in here and go to actions, I'm going to go ahead and hit make public. I'm going to go ahead and hit make public in there. And you should see two success codes. Now, what we can do is we can click on our index in here, and you can click in here to go to your index.html. And it's loaded up this web page. This is Serverless Conf in Austin. At the time, we didn't even have our Austin office open. Serverless Conf brought us to Austin, and we ended up opening a very big office out there. So that's our main headquarters in the US. And then all we need to do is click on this button that says click me, and there you go. It says hello, Ryan Kroonenberg. So that has just gone and queried API Gateway. API Gateway's passed that to Lambda. Lambda's sent a response back to API Gateway, which has sent a response back to our browser. Now, if you really want to complete the rest of this lab, what you can do is if we just go back over to AWS, just maximize the screen, we can go to our services and we can hook up Route 53 to our S3 bucket. So I'm going to go in here, go to our hosted zone, so hellocloudgurus2019.com. We're going to go in and create a record set. If you have an A record in here, make sure you go through and delete that record set. I'm going to go ahead and hit alias. In here, I'm going to click in here and we can see hellocloudgurus2019.com. So it's got exactly the same bucket name as my Route 53 domain name. So go ahead and click on that and go ahead and hit create. So that will now create a record set for hellocloudgurus2019.com. DNS can take some time to propagate, but let's give this a shot now. So hellocloudgurus2019.com, and it's not working. And just remember the haiku from the start of the course. It's not DNS. It can't be DNS. It was DNS. So I paused it for about 5 minutes. Let's go ahead and hit refresh. And there we go. It was DNS. So here it says Hello Cloud Gurus. Let's go ahead and hit click me. And there we go. It is now talking to API Gateway, which is talking to Lambda, which is passing a response back to API Gateway, which is passing a response back to my browser. So that is a super simple, very quick serverless website. In the next lecture, what we're going to do is we're going to add some complications to it. We're going to go and create a serverless website using the Poly service, and you'll be able to upload your notes that you've been taking throughout this course, and you'll be able to put them into this serverless website, and it will spit out MP3 files, so you'll be able to get your notes read back to you. And then what we're going to do after that is we're going to hook this up to an Alexa skill, and you'll be able to get Alexa to help you study, and then you've finished the course. So that is it for this lecture, everyone. If you've got the time, please join me in the next lecture. Thank you.